We'll see the building of the third temple in Jerusalem.
The Temple Mount is in our hands. We are in Jerusalem and we are here to...
For 2,000 years, one prophecy has waited to be fulfilled. The third temple must rise in Jerusalem before the end times begin. Jewish priests are trained. Golden vessels are forged. Architectural plans are complete. Everything is ready, except permission to build. Until now, secret tunnels beneath Al-Aqsa hold something the world isn't supposed to see yet. And Benjamin Netanyahu just became the first world leader to enter them. What he discovered down there could change everything we thought we knew about biblical prophecy. The report started as whispers in Israeli news forums. Then a security contractor mentioned it to a journalist. Within days, multiple sources confirmed the same story. Netanyahu had gone underground. Not to the Western Wall tunnels tourists visit every day. Not to the archaeological sites open to researchers. He entered restricted zones beneath the Temple Mount itself. Areas where even Israeli officials rarely venture. Places that require permission from the Islamic Waqf, the Muslim authority controlling the site. But no permission was requested. No official record exists of this visit. The Waqf claims it never happened. Yet 3 separate witnesses saw him enter through an access point near the Western Wall Plaza. He was down there for 40 minutes. When he emerged, he spoke to no one. His security detail moved faster than usual, and the entrance was sealed within the hour. What could justify such a risk? The Temple Mount sits at the center of the world's most sensitive religious conflict. Any unauthorized Jewish presence beneath Al-Aqsa Mosque could spark international outrage. Wars have started over less. Unless Netanyahu wasn't just visiting. Unless he was inspecting something that's been prepared in secret for years. Because what lies beneath Jerusalem isn't just ancient history. It might be the beginning of something the prophets warned about centuries ago. To understand why this matters, you need to know what makes this ground so powerful. The Temple Mount isn't just another religious site, it's the exact spot where heaven touched earth in biblical history. Where Abraham nearly sacrificed his son Isaac before God provided a ram. Where King Solomon built the first temple, filling it with gold and the Ark of the Covenant. Where God's presence dwelled among his people. The Babylonians destroyed that temple in 586 BC. The Jewish people were scattered, but 70 years later, they returned and built again. The second temple stood for centuries. Jesus himself walked its courts, taught in its shadows, and prophesied its destruction. In 70 AD, Roman soldiers burned it to the ground. Not one stone left upon another, just as Jesus predicted. For nearly 2,000 years, the Jewish people have mourned that loss. Every year at the Western Wall, they pray for its rebuilding. But there's a problem. The Dome of the Rock now sits where many believe the temple once stood. The Al-Aqsa Mosque covers the southern end. Muslims consider this their third holiest site, where Muhammad ascended to heaven. Any attempt to build a Jewish temple here would be seen as an act of war. Yet Jewish and Christian prophecy is clear. The temple will be rebuilt. Daniel speaks of sacrifices restored. Ezekiel describes its exact dimensions. Paul warns of events that require its existence. The question was never if, only when and how. And then there are the tunnels no one talks about publicly. The ones that required modern excavation. The ones with reinforced walls and electric lighting. The ones that lead exactly where they're not supposed to go. Netanyahu didn't tour the public sections. He went deeper, into zones that don't appear on any official map. Areas that connect to something beneath the Dome of the Rock itself. What's down there that required a prime minister's personal inspection? Construction equipment? Ancient artifacts? Or something being prepared for a very specific purpose? While the world debates whether a temple could ever be built, one organization in Jerusalem has been working as if it's already approved. The Temple Institute has spent decades preparing for the day construction begins. They're not just planning, they're manufacturing, training, rehearsing. Beneath Jerusalem's old city lies a maze that few have fully mapped. Ancient water channels, Roman drainage systems, Crusader passages. Layers of history stacked on top of each other, reaching back 3,000 years. Some tunnels are well known. The Western Wall tunnel runs along the base of the Temple Mount. Tourists walk through it daily, touching stones that Herod placed 2,000 years ago. But other passages remain sealed. Locked gates block certain corridors, signs warn against unauthorized entry. Israeli authorities claim it's for structural safety. The Muslim Waqf insists it's to prevent Jewish encroachment. Archaeological teams have found chambers no modern human had entered in centuries. Ritual baths from the Second Temple period. Storage rooms, passageways leading toward the Temple Mount itself. Walk into their facility and you'll see the golden menorah. 7 branches, pure gold, crafted exactly to biblical specifications. It weighs 90 pounds and costs $3 million. It's ready to be carried into the holy place the moment the temple opens. The priestly garments hang in climate-controlled storage, white linen woven according to ancient patterns. The high priest's breastplate with 12 gemstones. The golden crown inscribed with "Holy to the Lord." Every thread matches Exodus chapter 28. They forged the altar of incense, built the table of showbread, created the musical instruments the Levites will play. Even the copper laver for ritual washing stands complete. But objects are only part of the preparation. The Institute has identified and trained actual descendants of the priestly line, men from the tribe of Levi who can trace their bloodline back to Aaron. They've learned the ancient rituals, practiced the sacrifices using computer simulations. Everything is ready. The vessels, the priests, the knowledge. The only thing missing is the building itself. And according to the Institute's director, once they get permission, the temple could be operational within days, not years. The Bible doesn't leave the Third Temple to speculation. It describes it with certainty, not as a possibility, but as a prophetic fact that must occur before the end times unfold. The Apostle Paul wrote about a man who would enter the temple and declare himself God. That's in 2 Thessalonians. This person, called the man of lawlessness, sits in the temple of God and claims divine authority. But here's the critical detail. You can't sit in a temple that doesn't exist. Paul's prophecy requires the temple to be standing. The book of Revelation shows the Apostle John being told to measure the temple, to count its worshippers, to document its dimensions. John saw this in a vision of the last days. Again, the temple must be there. Daniel the prophet described a future ruler who makes a covenant with Israel for 7 years. Halfway through, he breaks the agreement and stops the sacrifices happening in the temple. No temple, no sacrifices. No sacrifices, no prophecy fulfillment. Jesus himself spoke of Jerusalem being trampled by Gentiles until their time is complete. That period appears to be ending. Israel controls Jerusalem again. The stage is being set. Even Ezekiel dedicated 9 chapters to describing a future temple in exact detail, the measurements of its walls, the layout of its courts, the dimensions of the altar. This isn't symbolic language. These are architectural blueprints. Every major prophet pointed to the same event. A temple standing in Jerusalem in the final generation. The generation that sees Israel reborn as a nation. The generation that sees Jerusalem under Jewish control. That's this generation. The prophecies aren't vague, they're specific, and they all require the same thing. The temple must be rebuilt before the final chapter of human history begins. Building the third temple on the Temple Mount should be impossible. The political barriers alone seem insurmountable. The site is under Islamic control. The Waqf manages it. Any Jewish construction there would violate decades of agreements. The Muslim world would erupt in outrage. We're talking about potential conflict involving billions of people across dozens of nations. The international community has made its position clear. The Temple Mount status quo cannot change. The United Nations would condemn any construction attempt. European nations would impose sanctions. Even America, Israel's closest ally, has historically opposed anything that disrupts the balance. So how could it possibly happen? Some point to the Abraham Accords. Israel normalized relations with several Arab nations in recent years. Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Morocco, Sudan. These agreements were unthinkable a decade ago. Yet they happened. What if similar secret negotiations are underway regarding the Temple Mount? What if certain Arab leaders have been approached with a proposal, a deal that allows limited Jewish worship or construction in exchange for something else? The prophet Daniel wrote about a covenant confirmed with many for 7 years, a peace agreement. Could that prophecy describe exactly this kind of arrangement? A treaty that somehow permits the temple while maintaining a fragile peace? Netanyahu has built his career on impossible negotiations. He's made deals that shocked the world before. What if he's been working on the biggest deal of all? One that solves a problem everyone said could never be solved? The tunnels beneath Al-Aqsa might hold the answer. The silence tells the story. When Netanyahu was reportedly seen beneath Al-Aqsa, the response from world capitals was deafening in its absence. No condemnation from Washington. No emergency UN Security Council meeting. No outcry from European leaders who usually jump at any Temple Mount controversy. That silence suggests they already knew. Or worse, they're part of whatever is happening. Consider the timing. Major diplomatic shifts have been occurring across the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, the guardian of Islam's holiest sites, has been warming to Israel. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has made statements that would have been unthinkable from a Saudi leader 5 years ago. Intelligence agencies don't stay quiet without reason. When something threatens regional stability, leaks happen. Warnings get issued. Yet nothing. Just carefully managed silence. Former Israeli officials have hinted at conversations happening at levels above public view. Discussions involving terms that can't be mentioned openly. Proposals being floated that would rewrite assumptions about what's possible in Jerusalem. The Vatican has been unusually quiet too. The Pope, typically vocal about Jerusalem's status, hasn't addressed recent developments. It's as if everyone with power knows something. They're waiting for the right moment to reveal it, or they're hoping it stays hidden until it's too late to stop. The pace of events has suddenly increased. Things that took decades are now happening in months. In March, Israeli archaeologists announced a discovery beneath the City of David, a massive structure from the First Temple period. They called it routine, but the timing raised questions. Why announce it now? Why emphasize its connection to temple worship? The Temple Institute released new footage in August, showing their red heifer breeding program. According to Jewish law, a perfectly red heifer is required for temple purification rituals. They claim to have identified several candidates that meet the biblical requirements. These animals are now old enough to be used. Without that heifer, temple service cannot begin. Now they have it. Israeli construction firms have been quietly stockpiling specific types of Jerusalem stone, the kind used in ancient temple construction. Orders have increased dramatically in the past 18 months. Someone is preparing to build something significant. Political barriers that seem permanent are crumbling. The Abraham Accords expanded. More Arab nations are normalizing relations. The impossible is becoming routine. Even the Israeli government's makeup has shifted. The current coalition includes parties that explicitly support temple construction. They're not fringe groups anymore. They hold real power, real budgets, real influence over what happens on the Temple Mount. Each piece moves into place. Each obstacle gets removed. Each requirement gets fulfilled. The acceleration isn't random. It's coordinated, planned, deliberate. Something is building toward a conclusion. So was Netanyahu really caught beneath Al-Aqsa? The evidence suggests yes. Multiple witnesses, unexplained access, sudden security lockdowns afterward. But the bigger question isn't whether he went down there. It's what he was inspecting. And why now? The prophecies demand a temple. The preparations are complete. The political landscape is shifting faster than anyone predicted. Ancient requirements are being fulfilled. World leaders are staying silent. Every piece is in position except one: permission to build. Or maybe that permission has already been granted. Just not publicly. Not yet. Because 3 days ago, construction equipment was photographed being moved through the Western Wall Plaza at 2 a.m. Heavy machinery. The kind used for major excavation. The reports were scrubbed from Israeli news sites within hours, but screenshots,